Hey everybody, welcome to the Passion for Purpose Up Close and Personal Podcast. And today I'm so excited to present to you my friend and my brother, my fraternity brother, Dr. Landon Lee.
Yeah.
And, welcome to Club Doctor too. I'm so glad me and you got a chance to do something that I know I never thought I would be able to do. But the fact that knowing I have some friends who are doing this also, y'all are encouraging. So I'm grateful for that. So Landon, just tell us about some of the things that you've done, who you are, where you're from, and just let Passion for Purpose know about Dr. Landon B. Lee and your journey.
All right. Well, thank you, Darryl. First of all, thank you for inviting me and allowing me to be here to, share my story with the world, whoever choose to chime in. But I'm honored for this opportunity, and I first of all commend you for the great work that you're doing in your ministry and your life work, and you're doing a great job. And I don't know how often you get the encouragement, but I just want to make sure I pass that on before we do anything else. So it's a great job.
Thank you.
But as far as me, well, I basically, just summing up in a nutshell, I consider myself a child of the King, a product of the King. I think that's just kind of where it is. My journey is extensive. It's gone over a large amount of territory. All this gray hair to show you. I've been around for a while.
Well, at least you still have hair. Man, gone.
Yeah, that's true. But just as far as professional, currently I am a mental health provider. I'm a mental health therapist. I'm a licensed mental health therapist here in the state of Georgia, nationally certified therapist. Also I am a counselor supervisor for clinicians that are trying to get their licensure and things of that nature. So I supervise counselors. My degree is in counselor education and supervision, where basically I'm trained to teach master's level students to be counselors, as well as supervise them in their licensure process. So that's kind of where I am now, but it's been an interesting journey getting here. So
how did you get there? Yeah.
Well, starting off, I'm from a small town in South Carolina called Greenwood, South Carolina. I grew up there. I went from kindergarten to high school there. Spent my grade years there. I'm from a family of singers. Okay. My family sing. We've been singing for years. We've been singing all our life, basically, but officially, as a family, we've been singing for 50 years. Matter of fact, this year marked our 50th year anniversary. Some of those that follow us may have seen my nieces. They did a little selection there for the anniversary as well. But anyway, so we've been doing that, and so that's kind of where the music starts. My dad was a quartet singer, so he started in the quartet field, and he did that for many years. We used to watch them. They used to come rehearse at our homes and that thing. And then at first it was just me and my sisters. We would sing, and he just saw that, wow, this thing was pretty good that they had over there. So at a certain point, he abandoned the quartet group and kind of took us on as a project. And we've been, doing it ever since, still doing it. Got an engagement coming up the first of next month. The latter part of next month, for another event. We just did one last month or this month. Sometime recently we went and performed. But anyway, so that's kind of like my humble beginnings as far as music is concerned. The interesting thing about our family, we always sung a cappella. We didn't use music. We've always sung, just as an a cappella group, and that's kind of like been my foundation. Got into instrumental music junior high school. I took up saxophone there and played sax there and through high school. And that's how I ended up at Morris Brown. I was recruited to the band there to play at Morris Brown. And so I did that through, I guess, my first couple of years. And then I transitioned to the choir while I was there. But so that was kind of the initial part of my background as far as music concerned. And kind of the way it went, I really had some talents that I never knew I had. I always, I'm not a great singer. I'm a good singer, not a great singer. I have some sisters that are great singers. Another sister, we're kind of average, but that wasn't our talent. My talent, which I didn't know at the time, was on the creative end. I found that out interestingly. Of course, we're fraternity brothers, and we, after I pledged Phi Mu Alpha, and the thing that got me into Phi Mu Alpha really was one day Ed and I went to a carnation, and we saw the carnation, and it was off the chain. We saw queens, coming through a cylinder capsule and all this type of stuff, and smoke, and looking like an Earth, Wind and Fire concert, and we were just blown away. After I was in the fraternity, at 1 year in time, my sister, Kim, was the queen of Phi Mu. She was a symphonette. She became the queen. And for whatever reason, things weren't going the way that they should be going. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna let my sister go out like this. We're gonna have a good coronation. So actually it boiled down to me, KB, Kenny Brown, and Chop. The three of us pretty much pulled that whole thing together. We, we came together, we kind of figured it out. I did everything that I could do, all the way to even typing the program, and I didn't know how to type. I just created all of that. And then at the end of the day, it was great. KB song On the Wings of Love. Chop helped us build some pulleys. We had my sister up on some wings that we had. KB, he's an artist too, so
I remember that. Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah, he created. We made the wings. I think KB drew them. I'm assuming, I can't remember, I think Chop may have cut them out, but we put it all together, had her up in the ceiling, and then as he was singing, we pulled her down and she came down, and it was beautiful, all that. That was great. But that just sparked my understanding that I had some skills to do some things, because at that point I really hadn't really thought about it. But later on, as I continued, I figured out that I had some writing skills. So early on, shortly after college, and this was really kind of after college, I started writing songs. And I wrote a lot of songs. I wrote a lot of R&B songs, a lot of gospel songs. Several of the gospel songs have been published through some of the groups that I worked with. I directed a couple of choirs. The first choir was Dad's Church. I was there for about 10 years, Essel. And I was the choir director there. Yorville.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah. So, and many of us went through there. I know KB sung up there some. I think Roy may have been up there a couple of times. Many of us just kind of went through there. Julius was a musician there for a while, so many of us was there. So, but I also was a choir director at the church I attend now for about another 10, 15 years, Boulder Crest Church of Christ. And there I wrote a few songs for that group as well as for my family. And even in the entertainment business, but just kind of getting to the journey that I was on. When I finished college, first of all, I went to college as a dual degree engineering major.
Oh, wow.
The goal was to go to Morris Brown, do the basic courses, and then transition to Georgia Tech and complete the dual degree, the engineering degree. Well, the problem was it took me so long to finish all the basic programs. I was afraid that my money and my situation may run out, because in the dual degree program, you have to finish both courses before you get any degree. And I didn't want to spend all my time and something happens that I don't finish everything up at Georgia Tech, that I don't get any degree.
Right.
So I changed course of action. I said, well, I had taken so many math classes, so I changed my major to math. Not intending to do anything with it. I changed my major to math. I got my degree in math. I intended to continue on in computer science, possibly because that piqued my interest as well. But by the time I graduated, at that point in time, I had kind of gotten sidetracked by the music business. As for me, as I said, I was never a great singer, never a really great musician, more of a creative person. But I was good on the business side of things. So once I finished Morris Brown, I went to music business school and learned a lot of behind the scenes things of the business side of things. And shortly thereafter, Ed, myself, and Gaylord created a company entitled East American Entertainment. Okay. And actually, EXO still has that same company. It started in the 80s.
Okay, so I've heard that name.
Yeah,
I've heard that name before. So that's
it's still in existence. He's still running it. We had a record label up under there called Sincere Records, and a lot of different things. And there was a lot of pieces of it that I was connected with. We had artists, we had dancers, we had had a whole dance troupe that's still out there too that I managed for a long time. So a lot of things that were happening there. And we had this one artist that was a phenomenal artist. He was really ahead of his time. He was a young guy, had the talent of a Stevie Wonder or a Peabo Bryson, had that talent, but he was a young guy. He had the mentality of the hip hop group. He had a mindset of like singing Jodeci. He could tear that type of stuff up. Wow. But, we saw some greater things for him, but you got to see it yourself in order to. He did some things. He did some soundtracks, a couple of different things that we looked at. But it was interesting with him towards the end of the era that I was working in the entertainment industry. I had to come to a place because I was really enjoyed. I had in my mind that I wanted to do certain things. I had already, entered I love the business of music, but there are certain things about the music business that I didn't like. Yeah. And then as I was journeying on, this particular artist, he was a great songwriter too, but he wrote a lot of seductive songs. Not a lot of them, but some of his songs were pretty seductive. And there was one particular song that he wrote that I was trying to say, you might want to change that. That's kind of like, going in pretty deep and so forth. But then I stepped back for a second, and there was more of an epiphany for me, because I'm like, okay, my role here is your manager. And I looked at him more than just an artist. I looked at him almost like a son. I went, I used to go and pull him out of the clubs where he was supposed to be performing and doing stuff he shouldn't have. Come on, man, let's go. and I loved him to death, still do. But I had an epiphany about what I was saying to him as far as his song selections and the things that he was going to do. The epiphany was the fact that I'm your manager, and the job as a manager should be more so to promote this artist to his fullest potential, to make him as successful as possible. That's generally what managers are trying to do, producers, so forth, are trying to do. And really what you're writing is probably more sellable than what I'm thinking, because that's the nature of the business. Yeah. And so I'm looking at, I'm seem to be encouraging him more in the way of where my value system is versus where what may be best for him as an artist. Yeah. So even though I'm still trying to encourage him to have a good value system, but as far as being an artist, this may be what you need to be doing. As a matter of fact, he did release that song as it was, and it did okay on the B market. It didn't really hit, on a big level, but it did fine. But that was an epiphany for me, because I'm like, okay, maybe I'm in the wrong field. Maybe I'm not doing the right thing. And so at a certain point, that along with some other things that were happening in my life made me come to a decision. And that decision was to surrender my will for whatever God had for me to do, whatever that is. You know, I mean, all coming up through life, I'm like, okay, well, God, or not necessarily not thinking about God, but at the same time thinking about my goals. Yeah. You know, God has always been in my life, but I'm thinking about my goals and what it is that I want to accomplish and where I want to be, even from the concept of the engineering piece, because I took some courses in high school and I was pretty good in the engineering drafting department. I said, okay, that's what I want to do. That's a career. I had a great drafting and design instructor. I said, I want to get into that field. And that's nothing wrong. That's, you know, that's how you learn and try to seek out where you want to go. But ultimately, I got to a point where I said, it's not my will, but what it is that you want me to do. Yeah. And I prayed about that. I said, God, I surrender my will. I surrender whatever you put me here for a purpose, for a reason, and whatever it is that you have for me to do, I want to do that. That's it. And I'm going to tell you, since that time, my life changed. I remember one specific example. I always wanted to buy a home. I never really liked renting apartments. I just felt like that was money being wasted. And it's not necessarily that the case. It's wherever you are in the space and time. That may be the best opportunity, but at least that was my mindset at the time. And I had tried many times not many times, but a few times to purchase a home. Things didn't add up, things didn't operate just right and whatever. Now, here I am. But shortly after I surrendered my will and I just said, God, whatever, then this just opportunity to buy a house just came up. And I wasn't even looking for it. It just kind of came. And the house that I was looking for, I wasn't able to get it. Somebody bought it or put a contract on it before I was able to get it. But that put me in the game. That put me in the game with an agent and looking and then, you know, found a home. And I bought the home, and I was in that home for 20-something years, 22 years or something of that nature. And that's just a small example. But the thing is that there's nothing that I'm doing today, if I can think about it, almost nothing that I'm doing today that I was doing back then whenever I said I surrender my will. So that's what I mean. God has kind of, at that point, when I truly surrendered, He started taking me on this journey of evolving from one place to the next, moving out of the entertainment business, ultimately into the ministry, and from the ministry into mental health. And one of the things that got me from that is because I understood the fact that sometimes ministers are put in precarious positions. Many times folks come to ministers for everything. They, you know, and a lot of times ministers find themselves operating out of their scope of practice. And they end up, you know, because people will come to you, they may be depressed, they may be going through whatever. And, you know, all you really have for them is a word and some prayer. And that's good. That's a good foundation. And actually, that's still a part of my practice is to do that. But I found that sometimes people need a little more. And you may, and there are certain things that people are going through. And that led me into the mental health field to try to move and work in that regard. So that's generally a little bit of my journey, how I got from, you know, Greenwood to being here now as a mental health therapist and trying to do what I do a little bit.
When I tell you, I love hearing the journey that people, especially people who I know and know their character, know what they're like, know them, even especially say being able to watch it sometimes up close and sometimes from afar. And when I think about all the people who I've had I call it an honor to know growing up and going through life. I said, man, God has put me around some people who are amazing. And people say, even this right here, I had no idea. If you told me 2 years ago, I would be sitting here doing this kind of stuff, I wouldn't have believed it, you know, because of the journey that we go through. Because coming through school, we all have the idea, man, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to make a lot of money. And then once I realized that God had something different for, not necessarily that God didn't have me making money, but God showed me his path. And once I decided that that's the path I wanted to live, things just started really taking a different direction. And it allowed me to start appreciating the people that I came across even more. And I didn't know what that was going to mean to me coming forward to the future. But now, as I get a chance to connect and reconnect with people, I said, God was preparing me all along for this, and he prepared those who was with me in my environment for the same thing. Because now I can make a phone call or text and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you on this. And like you and some of the other people, y'all respond and y'all are sharing stories, saying stuff that I knew, saying stuff I had no idea about. And I'm like, man, look at God. This is just really fascinating to me. So as I was listening, I was just thinking, I was just talking on a podcast with another person, and I said, I don't believe that as a pastor, I should have to be able to deal with mental health. I said, I refer them out. So I didn't know that. See, I knew you was in counseling, but I didn't know it was mental health. I said, man, I got somebody really close. I can refer somebody to.
Exactly.
And I said, because mental health is so important to me right now. A lot of what we're dealing with is because of mental health, and we don't have the resources in our community to take advantage of it like we should, because we don't know those people for the most part. And then a lot of times, some people just feel like they can't afford it. But knowing people out there that help like you and other people, man, I'm just really excited about that. Man,
and that's a good point that you're making. I mean, it's awareness. Many times, as I was saying earlier, many times, lay people will go to their clergy for everything. And if it's not their clergy, it's going to be their primary care.
Yeah.
And some people feel that because he's a doctor, he has a medical degree, what have you, then he's able to handle everything that you take to him. And if you think about that, just in general, a primary care person, a general practitioner, just kind of deals with the overall physical health of their clientele. But if there is a particular area or issue that a person is dealing with, then they normally refer them to a specialist, someone that works in that particular area. And that's the same in mental health. If there's an issue that may be coming up, a person saying that, oh, I feel depressed, well, they may write them a prescription, and unfortunately, they can just write a prescription of Prozac. Here you go. But a lot of times the medication can be impactful and helpful with dealing with depression, anxiety, and whatever, but there may be more to that story. There may be something that's driving that depression. Medication may or may not be the answer, and most of the time it's a combination. So just to medicate something, sometimes it's masking the real issue and not really getting down to whatever it is. So that's the thing, and just people being open to saying what they can do and what they can't do. That's empowering to say, I'm not, that's out of my scope. I can't really, but being resourceful enough to say, well, look, let me let you go. I'm going to give you a referral. I want you to call this person and tell them I sent you over, or I'll give them an email or a text to let them know I'm sending you over. And then you go talk to them, and then we can come back and we can talk more about, if you're a clergy, about your spirituality, or talk more about if you're a physician, about your medical issues and all of those types of things. So that's where I think the marriage, and I think what happens is that people don't understand that God has created different ministries in folks. Whereas a physician may be a minister of healing. A mental health professional, the same thing, a minister of mental health support and healing, and those directives. And whereas a clergy may work in spiritual healing. So God has a vast approach in helping people get through whatever crises they may be dealing with. So I just think that that's just the opportunity that of marrying ministries for the better good of mankind.
And God will allow us opportunity to prepare ourselves, and we don't even know we're being prepared for it. I was sharing with somebody last week when they asked me, what do you think your strength in ministry is? And I kind of, after I thought about it, I said, organization. I said, I was a business major in undergrad, so I know how to start an organization. I know how to put all the pieces in place and stuff like that. Yes, I could pray. Yes, I could preach. I try to sing. I do all those things that most people do in churches. But I said my strength is probably organization for us, how to go make sure you're doing it the right way. Go to the Secretary of State and register yourself, get you a 501c3, get you some sound boards and stuff like that, you know. So those are the strengths. And like now, me knowing that you're in mental health and knowing that mental health is engaged with the spiritual health for the most part, married to spiritual health, it's not difficult for me at all to say, you know, let me get you to call this person here. Let me get you to go out and see this person like that. And I think I'm just gonna say the Black community, we have to take more advantage of mental health opportunities. And, you know, and I've been saying that without even knowing that I knew somebody personally that was dealing with mental health. So I'm just really excited about this whole opportunity now. And I got to make sure I get your word out there and your name out there to a lot of people who I know need mental health, even though they might not know they need mental health.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that's ironic that you say that, because I tell people often, there is not a person on the planet that does not suffer from some level of mental duress at some point in time in their life. We all are, that's just part of it. It's no more than being stressed, overwhelmed by something, going through something that's going on at a minimum. You know, it could be anxiety because you lost your job. It could be grief because you lost a loved one or something of that nature. So that's the thing that we deal with as far as mental health. The stigma of mental health in the African American community is an interesting thing, and I think it goes all the way back to our coming to America, if not before. I think it goes all the way back to slavery, because when you're looking at that existence that we had as a people, at that point you couldn't show weakness, you couldn't show vulnerability. You were taught to kind of just keep it together for fear of either being beaten or being separated or being whatever. You had to just follow the status quo. You have to show that you got it all together. And to me, that has evolved from generation to generation, where you've gotten to a point where people feel that I gotta put on this facade that I got everything together at all times. And so because if I show any level of weakness, I'm gonna reap some negative repercussions. People will see me a certain way. I can't, maybe get certain jobs, employment. That's the same issue that many folks deal with in the military. Mm-hmm. Many times in the military, you can't show. Now it's changing, and I work with the VA as well. That's part of the things that I do regularly, and I work with veterans regularly in crisis situations. And so the thing is that many times when I've worked with active duty military, and they're afraid. They're afraid because, and it has a strong premise, and this is that. For instance, during wartime, you're not necessarily comfortable if you know the person that has your back is not mentally stable. You're not comfortable. So it's like, it's if you're flagged as a person that's not mentally stable, you may get pulled, you may get flagged. I've heard some horrendous things that have happened. People have to be identified, weapons taken from them, a lot of different things. And it, while on the surface, it may be a situation where you may be presenting a concept of protecting that individual from harming themselves because they may have some suicidal ideations. In reality, what you're doing is frightening others to come forth because they will fear that they may receive that same level of treatment and so forth. So it goes on in different arenas when you, that's why stigmas come up. People are afraid to show vulnerability because of the repercussions that may come. So that's why it's good when you have now some of the celebrities are coming out that are talking about their struggles and different people that's a good platform to make people understand that mental health challenges is a real thing, and it's something that we really have to pay close attention to, because it really can, if you don't address it, it can take you to a very dark place.
And you know, if you think about it, it's not rocket science you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize the importance of mental health if you know that mental health is just a part of your body, like physical, spiritual,
overall health,
and community, and all those things. And you would think that would be the thing that would make people want to get the mental health. I would prefer somebody who is seeing somebody for their mental health issues, as opposed to somebody who's disguising it and covering it up, and then something go wrong and I found out, man, you had issues and you didn't go and get help. You know, that would bother me more. So, you know, I think about that, and I realized the first time I actually went to a mental health provider, and how I found out, how I ended up going was, I asked somebody at work one day, I said, what is EAP? And they, you know, they were like, oh, this employee assistance program, and you know, if you have issues going on, you can talk to them, it's confidential and all that, and you get 6 free sessions. And I'm like, really? And I'm paying for this? But I made a call and got me. I didn't even know, I don't even think I had anything going on, but I said, I get to give me 6 free sessions that I'm paying for already. I wouldn't took advantage of that and became a proponent of it, you know. I said, I felt so good after that. You know, I said, man, why everybody not doing this? Especially if you're paying for it, especially if you can get it done. But people just won't get it done. And I said, now we're in a society where things are happening, and we said, well, they had mental issues and they never got help. Now I'm wondering who fought it. Because we could have prevented this stuff. A lot of stuff we could have prevented. And I say the same thing about prayer.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is the thing. Sometimes we put things in a vacuum. We look at things in isolation, when actually it all can work together. Yeah. I work with an organization called Southeast Regional Faith-Based Mental Health Initiative. Mm-hmm. And what this is doing, this is a group of mental health providers that are partnering with spiritual groups and churches and people of faith that come together and utilize the benefits of mental health and their spiritual foundation. It does not have to be an either or. Right. See, the thing is this, the reason and the simple philosophy of this, from my perspective, is that in most mental health modalities or theoretical approaches, you operate from a strength base. So what are your strengths? What are the things that guide you? Instead of focusing in a lot of times on the negatives or the things that are dragging you down, what types of things? Let's kind of look at those things that bring you hope, that brings you strength, so if you're dealing with a person that is a person of faith, and their faith gives them the hope, gives them the strength that they need to move forward, then we as clinicians that are Christians or are faith-based utilize that. Now, I'm a Christian counselor because I'm a Christian first, and then I'm a counselor. Right. So I don't necessarily, and there's some people that use the term Christian counselor that basically their whole approach is based upon biblical principles and so forth. That's great. And that's what I really was before I became a clinical therapist, before I got the training. I'm a clinical therapist that is a Christian, that use all the clinical techniques that I've learned to help a person in whatever state that they may be in. But with that being said, when I recognize that you are a person of faith, when you have an opportunity to deal with, and you've been taught about who your creator is, who God is, and that's what you believe, that's your belief system, then that's a strength. That's a major strength. That one of the things that you deal with when you're dealing with suicidality, when you're dealing with depression, when you're dealing with a lot of anxiety, is feelings of hopelessness. So when we can identify that you have a source of hope, which is the greatest source there is, And okay, we got a lot of things going on, but understand that this is the foundation of where we're going. We're gonna, and then not only do you have that general level of understanding, but we have a book called the Word of God that we can utilize. And because of my, I do have a master's also in divinity, so I got a good foundation in biblical studies. I taught Bible for 20-something years. I was evangelism minister. I used to go out, convert folks, teach, whatever. So I have a good biblical foundation. And so we're going to bring that into session. When I know that that's your strength base, it's been many times when folks were struggling and they're talking about struggling with forgiving someone that has hurt them and they're going through that. I mean, that my go-to for that is dealing with Jacob and Esau. Going straightly to that passage, talking about all the stuff Jacob did to Esau, how he, wronged him, stole his blessing, all these different things. And then when the time for them to reunite, Jacob was so full of anxiety and stress for all the stuff he'd done wrong to his brother. Yeah. And by the time they came together, Esau had forgotten all about that stuff. He was just glad to see his family and embracing the family. So a lot of those things, you can help a person that's going through a similar type of struggle. God has provided all this information as a pathway that we can use to help us understand and work through those struggles. So that's just an example of how all these things merge together. You have to put them in a vacuum. You don't have to have one thing over here, another thing over there, but you could recognize that there's a nucleus here of your spiritual foundation that can allow you to get the help you need in whatever areas of help that you may be in need of.
And when I tell you depression is so real right now, I was talking to, again, one of the person I was doing the podcast with, and we were talking about how when people commit suicide, it's not necessarily they want to die. They just want to end life as they know it. And if you could show them that they can have another life, even still living, that would be a good option for them. But a lot of times people don't know how to just share information like that with them. Let's see, can we change something that's going on to get you into a direction where you feel like your life do matter, where it do make a difference to somebody else. And just having professionals around to be able to share that from a perspective of knowledge and heart. That's something that, people need to be exposed to, but we got to get rid of that stigma, especially in the Black community, that mental health is a bad thing. To me, it's one of the greatest things that happen, and that's the reason I think the other community don't want us to have this much, because they know how powerful it is for their community. So now if we get it and we get empowered with it, man, watch out. We are forced to be reckoned with then. And I'm glad that we got a lot of African Americans actually going into mental health, because that's not an easy field to get into. If you think about the terms and the principles and the practices that you have to master to get in that field, man, that had, I thought you had one of them easy doctors like, man,
Listen to you.
Not that man was easy, but I didn't know you was that deep, man.
But let me just say this, when you were talking about suicide, and it's an interesting thing because a lot of times when we're dealing with mental health, we're often looking at things that we're dealing with, and we have the concept of trying to get rid of whatever this is. So if I'm having suicidal thoughts, I want to get rid of those thoughts. If I'm dealing with depression, I want to get rid of depression. If I'm dealing with any type of sexual behavior that's not appropriate, I want to get rid of those things. But when you start training in mental health, one of the modalities that I'm training in and that I have some level of experience in is called IFS, which stands for Internal Family Systems. And one of the beauties of this particular modality, whether it was intended or not by Richard Schwartz, Dr. Schwartz is the founder of this modality. I don't think he was intending for it to necessarily be a spiritual concept, but it is. And when one of the things that it looks at the individual as being a self and then made up of a variety of parts. And that self is is that person's soul and spirit. That's the true self of that person. But then you have these other parts that come along at various times, different parts that may be dealing with, and they actually have their own personalities. You may have heard of multiple personalities and things of that nature. Well, that's really a true concept. Now, some people that actually go to the full level of dissociation, where they become a different person, that's just on the other end of the spectrum. But all of us dissociate to some level. For instance, Darryl, when you go to your church, your building, wherever it is, you know where it is. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to get out your navigation system. You don't have to do anything but hop in your car. And I'm pretty sure from time to time, you either been going to your church or coming back home. And before you know it, you're pulling up in the driveway and, oh, I'm here now. I hadn't even thought about it. Because what has happened, your mind has drifted somewhere else. Your mind is dissociated from the here and now, is moved to a whole different another place. And so therefore that's a real thing. But the point I was trying to make is that when you have these different parts that's going on, whether it's suicide, whether it's depression, those are parts that are playing an important role in your life. Yeah. A lot of times people don't want to accept that. That's just something so bad. What that part is doing is trying to protect something else from being overwhelmed. Okay. So some of those things may be, I may have some type of trauma that I'm dealing with. And instead of me just giving into that trauma, then I'll rather, avert to cutting or taking drugs or drinking or doing something. All of those parts have an important role. But the point is that if you allow yourself and you communicate with that part to allow you in to deal with that pain, then that part no longer has to play that role. It can play a different role. And so those are the things that I'm talking about when you are actually moving into the role of therapeutic intervention versus just saying, okay, we're just going to pray about it and let God work. God is trying to work. He's trying to get you in the right place to get the right help.
And see, that's the thing too, that I'm really glad to see a lot of people understanding. When we pray, there's still things that we must do while that prayer is being answered by God. God would put people around you. God would put information before you. God would allow you to experience certain things. And it's up to us to decide that, okay, this is from God. Let me go and see what this is. Let me go and make sure. Let me trust that this is what God is sending me to. And this is who God is sending me to, as opposed to waiting on this big celestial appearance to come from the sky. Because I said, God can work that way, but God works through us. God
that's right, earthen vessel.
Put us around and everything. And that's something that it took me a minute to understand. And once I understood that, I said, a lot of things we pray for could be avoided if we took advantage of the people around us and the resources we have. When people ask me to pray for them for like surgery or overeating, weight and things like that, I said, that's something that we did that we could just go and get some help on. Not saying that we don't need to pray, because we do need to pray. But once we pray, ask God to give us directions on who's going to appear before us or who's going to appear before, and work in that form. And the fact that you say a Christian counselor, it's interesting because a lot of times I see signs say Christian business and Christian this. And often when I say, okay, what's Christian about it? Is that they are Christian and this is the business they're in, or they're gearing toward people who are Christians and they want their business? So, I always ask that question when I hear people say that. So the beauty of it is the fact that me knowing you, I know you're a Christian, and I know the fact that you're a Christian business-based mental health. I always think of you as big brother businessman. So I say everything I've known you to do, it has some order. I never seen you chaotic. I always seen you structured. So this don't surprise me at all, the fact that you're doing mental health, and I'm sure that there's a plan and a process that you have that you abide by. So I think the beauty of this whole thing, I had no idea. But most of the time I have no idea of what I'm gonna get when I interview people or let people talk and we just sit down and have a conversation. But the beauty of it is there are so many people who has so many gifts available that need to be able to share with, even if it just help one person.
That's right.
Even if they just help one person, because that one person, if they get help and if they have the thankfulness within them, they go tell somebody else. You ain't gonna let nobody bless you with something really good and you keep it to yourself.
So, that's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
So I want to shift a little bit and just ask about this beautiful family you have. I have the privilege and the unique honor of knowing your wife, Tanita. So how is she? And tell me about, how is it that she's been able to encourage you in your journey and you encouraging each other and you all both coming together as one, but yet uniquely have a different purpose, and how that helped you be the person that you are?
Oh, well, that's really been, Tanita's been my rock throughout all of this.
Please tell I said hello.
Yeah, I will. We've been on this journey together. We just celebrated 25 years this year. And she's been with me from, really from, I guess when we married, I was working at the post office at that point in time. So I was there, and at a certain point, I decided to leave to go out and to my own business and finances, and I was going to work in that field. And I was doing decent in that field, but not good enough, because at this point, if it was just me, I could have, did whatever I needed to do. But at this point in time, I'm working with, I got a family. I got to take care of a family, my wife and my son, and trying to make sure that, we're taking care of things that we need to do. But from there, I've done all types of things. I worked at Washington for a long time. And I was there all through getting my degrees as I was going to school and working at different places, doing whatever I had to do in order to get through. But she was there. I mean, to me, she was the foundation. She was able to always keep the home solid, keep it where it needs to be. I mean, unfortunately, I've always been running like a chicken with my head cut off. I mean, I've always been doing multiple things at one time, just kind of always over the place. Sometimes I'll slow it down and get it together for a brief moment, but before I know it, I'm off and running again. So she represents the stability. She's really, to be honest, because of all the things that I do, I rarely have the opportunity to get out and to connect with friends and fraternity brothers like I want. I always look at the text messages come out about the brothers meeting. I'm like, yeah, can't go again.
I feel you. Yeah. I just and it's like, it happens.
I've gotten to one, but every time I get ready to, that it comes up on my schedule. I think my schedule's going to change and I'm able to come. But I said all that to say, I've told my wife often that she's my really only true friend at this point. Whereas I've had very close relationships with different people throughout my life, but as far as connecting, she's the one, I spend all my day with, any type of social activity, we're connected together. So when I'm having a stressful day, she's the one that I run all of my, issues by. Whatever concerns that I have, I run by, and vice versa. We do that for each other. We'll try to be a support for each other. So I wouldn't be where I am. Honestly, I couldn't have completed the degrees. I couldn't have been able to accomplish whatever I may appear that I've accomplished. I couldn't have been able to do that. And I just want everyone to understand the significance of having a powerful mate in your life, making sure that while as an individual, you can accomplish a lot of things, but God didn't intend it to be that way. That's right. Now, as Paul said, I wish some of you all was as I, and his mission was to be single because he had to do a lot of traveling. He had to be, that was just his plight. But generally speaking, our work is to have our helpmate to be there, and we're helpmate to each other. So sometimes we get it twisted. We think, of hierarchical thing, and we understand the head of household and all that type of stuff. But the reality of it is that submitting one another to one another in love and humility and helping each other along the way. So yeah, she's been that for me. And I can't even imagine doing the things that I could have been able to do without her help and support.
And that's a model that we need to see more of. You know, I tell people all the time, my wife is my best friend. We do everything together. And, you know, it's so interesting because people say things like, I don't never see you without your wife or vice versa. I said, because we try to build our life around the things that we feel God wants us to do. And God wants us to be able to be supportive of each other, be there for each other, be the foundation and the rock for each other. And the fact that as a husband and wife, it's important to know that God is leading that household. Whatever household God is leading, God gonna have order there and it's gonna be structured there. And a lot of times you're gonna realize a lot of stuff you think you need, you don't really need because you already have it in that household. So, and be it that spouse, that kid, that family, whatever the structure of the household is. So I think it's a beautiful situation that, man, people need to see people like you and other people in our, not necessarily our fraternity, but in our environment that we came out of, because I had no idea. If you had told me those years back on that campus at Morris Brown that a lot of us would be at this place in life doing some of the things that I see some of you all are doing and everything, I feel like, say, talking about Paul, I feel like the least of them. You know, I think about some of the talent that you all have and some things y'all did. I said, they must just feel sorry for me and let me in the fraternity because, you know, I wasn't a great musician or nothing like that. I was okay. And, you know, I knew how to do things, but I didn't have that special it factor like some of you all guys had and everything. I said, you know, I could blend. But some of y'all guys are rock stars. Y'all was able to do some things, and the fact that God brought us all together for our unique gifts and things. And now, years and years later, that's really important to make sure that you build the relationship the right way when you first build it. Because when time go back and you need to go back and connect, if you build it right, that person's gonna be there for you. You know, I had no reservation at all when I said, I need to reach out to some of these guys because I want to talk to some of them and I want to see if they want to talk about some of the things that they've done in life. And I'm not looking for no magic stars or nothing like that. I'm just looking for people to have some real good stuff that's going to help somebody, real people, yeah. And I said, that's what I want. And it's interesting because a lot of people think because you go out and you do certain things that a lot of people hadn't done, that you're going to be different. I was already different. Y'all just didn't know it because I always felt like I marched to the beat of different drum, and most of us, if we're honest, we all think that about ourselves. But it's not that it's a better or worse, it's just different.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And the point that you were making, like as far as the fraternity is concerned and the different talent levels, I think what's significant is that in any organization, in any mechanism, that there has to be a variety of talents and gifts to make it operate appropriately. If everyone was, you know, the drum major, if everyone, you know, then you wouldn't have a band. You gotta have, you know, you gotta have the players. And so, you know, my role, similar to yours, have always been to help organize and put structure in and things of that nature. And I just remember when we were pledging, all 5 of us, we had different gift sets. You know, Ed was the primary person that taught music. You know, we had to learn all the songs, things of that nature. But I was the person that taught the book, because a part of the process was that you had to know bylaws, you had to know all the rules and regulations of the fraternity, you had to know them by heart. And so while we spent a lot of time, and our name was Harmonic 5, and that just the mere fact that we had the skill set of singing. All of us, even though some of us was in the band, we had a good ear, we knew how to sing, we knew how to make harmony. And so while we may have enjoyed the concept of coming to either to Ed's basement or coming to, you know, somebody's dorm room and practicing and learning some of the songs, because that was just a natural thing that we enjoyed doing. At the same time, en route to where we were going, I'm repeating whatever the bylaws are, and then everybody else got to repeat it. And so it was not just good enough for me to know. I had to make sure that you knew. And so we, one by one, we say, what is article this or what is that? And, we'll lay it down. And actually, some of the big brothers got frustrated because we knew too much. It was like they didn't have a whole lot to go in on us with. They went in and they found some things, but we were very, 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 very. So my whole point is that people oftentimes may minimize their role, and this is going back to the spiritual concept. When you're talking about a body, the body has many members. So you got to look at, and each member has a role to play. And from a biblical standpoint, the uncomely parts are more vital than the comely parts. And what I mean by that, when you're looking at the eyes, the nose, the ears, and so forth, those are the comely parts.
Right.
But if I lose a finger, I'll still live. Yeah. If I lose an ear, I'll still live. But if I start losing some of the uncomely parts, where those organs that's on the inside of me that makes this body move, I may not make it. So that's the analogy that we have to look at, the fact that when we are looking at any organization, whatever it is, your role is important. Play your part. As we said in the band, pick up your feet, play your part, and drive. Whatever that part is, play your part.
Yeah. And that's important too, knowing your part and being good at when your time is called to act upon your part. So what would people be surprised to know about you that they didn't know? You think that most people wouldn't know about you and they'd be surprised?
Well, I've said some of the things. I don't know if people knew that I was a writer. And being a writer, I was also a playwright. We had a theatrical company called Atlanta Theatrical Players. We did plays for 5 years. We used to go to my family, my sisters and I. We used to travel to my hometown in South Carolina and do plays every weekend for 5 years. And we still do them on contract when people contract us out to go. But we had a family Christian supper club in South Carolina, so we used to go and do that on a regular basis. And there's probably some other things I just not coming to mind, but that's one thing that some people knew about and others didn't know. And I used to pretty much write all the plays that we did. That was another area of writing that I love writing. I love creating.
So I think it's interesting about you being in mental health. The question sounds funny to me asking us, but what do you do to relax? Or how do you relax?
That's a great question, because one of the analogies, or one of the paradoxes rather, of being in mental health is that many mental health providers are overworked. and that's one of the main things in our field, is trying to develop areas of self-care and doing things that will help you relax. And so for me, for one thing, just to give you an idea about my schedule, like I said, I work in management for crisis management for the VA, and I also run this private practice, a group practice called Empowerment Counseling Group. So I'm seeing clients, and I tell people I sit in this same chair, sometime from sun up to sundown. And so one of the things I have to do to take care of myself is just simply stand. Instead of sitting here a lot, I just stand up. But just my regular routine, I get up. My schedule just changed, so I don't have to get up as early. But I used to get up at 4:30 in the morning. I do my elliptical from about 30 to 45 minutes. The goal is an hour, but depends upon how quick I get up and all that stuff. And during that time, I do my prayer and my Bible studies and things of that nature, Bible reading more than anything else at that point while I'm working out. So that's what I do. I try to do about 400 push-ups a day. I do them in sequences. I try to do about 100 here, another 100 there throughout the day. Now they ain't like, the real, He-Man push-up.
Okay.
They're
I
what
I can see you doing that though. I can actually see you doing it like that.
Yeah. So, and I actually learned that as a routine. I used to work in corrections as a part of my mental health journey. When I worked in corrections. I worked at Fulton County Jail for a while in mental health. And a lot of the inmates, that's what they do. That's what and I encourage them because exercise is important for the endorphins in your body, and they're confined. So when I go and make my rounds, I see them. Okay, they're doing a push-up, they're doing whatever. So that's really a good thing to. And that's why you see a lot of guys when they come out, they bust up because they got time on their head and they work out.
People incorporate push-ups more. I used to do push-ups, but I don't do them near as much. Like you said, I sit in this chair predominantly. Whenever I'm in here, I'm sitting in this chair doing something. So I had to have like a 25-pound curl thing down on the floor that I do curls and stuff.
Yeah.
I have my little weights around me. And
I got some over here myself.
Do that. And now, like for the past so many days, I've been doing this 30-day run challenge. So I'm running like 3 to 5 miles a day. And
okay, that's good.
Going up and down stadium steps because I'm trying to stay fit. Because I said I need my mind clear. Because I want to be able to think properly about things I'm trying to do in life. I feel like we're still young to make a difference. I still think there's a lot of energy left in a lot of us to do something really great for society. So I want to make sure I can do what I can for it. And the fact, I got to get on some push-ups because I hadn't did push-ups in a while. You got to be ready enough for that. But yeah. I'm
going to tell you another thing I do to relax. And because what I find myself doing, I love what I do. Let me just say that first. That's why I know that God has led me to where I love what I do with a passion, even with my VA job, when I'm managing and helping staff be better at what they do, and when I'm seeing my clients, I love that. But what I find myself, I'm giving most of my time to someone else. Yeah. Most of my day, I'm giving myself to someone else. So I have to find time to just give to myself. And what I do, one of the most consistent things I do now, because my schedule recently changed, and my VA job, I work from 1 in the afternoon to I do 10-hour shifts to 11:30. And so when I get off at 11:30, someone may think, oh, you just worked 10 hours. You need to go to bed. Yeah. I got to unwind. I log off the system here. I go downstairs. I turn on my television. I'm gonna watch me either some Perry Mason or Columbo.
Okay.
I'm just gonna watch some mindless stuff, or in the morning before I start working my day, I may watch some old nostalgia TV. Right now, I'm watching The Flying Nun, or I'm watching Hazel, or some of those shows from whatever that's mindless stuff. You just kind of just decompressing and just letting it go. And by the time I watch an episode of Perry Mason or Columbo, okay, I'm relaxed or whatever, and I'm going upstairs and go to bed. But it's important to put systems in place to do that, because you'll continue to talk about you need to, do a bit more in wellness. You need to do more in this. But if you don't have a pattern, a plan, or a system to say, this is how I do this, and this is when I do this, then you'll find yourself always thinking about, this is what I need to do, but never getting around to it. So there are some other things now that I truly, truly want to do, but for instance, I haven't been able to talk to people as much as I want to. I like to check in on folks. Haven't been able to do that. My old system was I always get it en route. If I'm coming from one place to another, I just hit them on the car, and then we'll talk or whatever, and and that's that. But now that I'm not traveling, that system is broken. Yeah. So I have to create a different system in order to do it. So, but anyway, that's kind of general.
I understand that
some
too.
of the things that I do.
I definitely understand that. I do something similar. Like now, my wife, she's going back into the office a little more regular now. So I try to make sure that anything I need to do for stuff like that, calls, texts, people who need to talk to me, I try to do all that before she gets in, for the most part, because when she gets here, I wanted to give her the attention. And even though we might do some stuff on our laptop and be working while we here together, but I want to make sure that I don't do everything I need to do with people before she get here for the most part. And if I need to do something after that, I could just tidy up later on. But I want to make sure that when family time comes, it's family time. But I really, I was glad to get you on, Landon. I look forward to talking to you, and I think this is something great that people need to know about. And you're doing a great work. And I want you to send me your number, your email address, and your website, because I want to make sure that people have access to you. And I'm gonna put it on my stuff too. So if they come to my YouTube page or website, something like that, they'll be able to know they can connect with you that way also.
Sounds good. I will do it.
Well, thank you so much for being here on Passion for Purpose Up Close and Personal podcast. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. I appreciate it, Darryl.
All right, thanks a lot, Landon. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care now.
All right. You too.